Kizamde, hop on the beat!
In March, we saw the release of the 6th issue of the JOJO Magazine, coinciding with the release of the first episode of the Steel Ball Run anime. If you aren't already familiar, this is a semi-frequent publication covering all things JOJO, including behind-the-scenes info, interviews, and new spin-off light novel and manga chapters. This issue, of course, has a big focus on Steel Ball Run, including a new illustration by Araki of Johnny and Gyro for the front cover, as well as Joseph and Caesar on the back. The magazine opens with a look at Araki's recent visit to the Art of Manga exhibition at the De Young Museum in San Francisco, California. In the section dedicated to Araki's art, manuscripts of the manga from all 9 parts were displayed, as well as various illustrations. Araki's 12-canvas life-size piece There's Always a Traitor was also put on display here, which he originally created for the Ripples of Adventure exhibition in 2018. The magazine covers Araki's visit to the new exhibition, accompanied by his former editor Ryosuke Kabashima. They commented on the panel depicting Jonathan's death as being inspired by the boxing manga Ashita no Joe, and the way Araki's character designs evolved over time. The next section goes over another recent exhibition of Araki's art, 9 lithographic drawings of JOJO characters displayed at a gallery in San Francisco as part of the Minnesota Street Project. Lithography is a technique of drawing directly onto a plate, which is then transferred onto paper to create the finished image, sort of like a printing press. This means that the image must actually be drawn in reverse, since it will appear mirrored after pressing, a challenge which Araki comments on in his interview here. The characters he chose to draw here are Jotaro, Dio, Josuke, Rohan, Giorno, Jolene, Funny Valentine, Yasuho, and Dragona Joestar. Alongside these, 9 lenticular works were also shown. These are textured images that change depending on the viewing angle, creating a 3D effect. For these ones, already existing panels from the manga were used. Next, we have a big feature focused on the Steel Ball Run anime. This starts off with a highlight reel of the first episode, and then shows off the model sheets for our main characters. Surprisingly, we also get to see them for minor racers like Avdol and Dot Han, as well as Mountain Tim, even though he isn't relevant yet. Then there's a double interview with Shogo Sakata and Yohei Azakami, the voice actors for Johnny and Gyro. When asked how they started reading Part 7, Sakata says that he read it after being offered the role and really enjoyed it. Azakami, on the other hand, had already read JOJO when Steel Ball Run first released. He was shocked to see how different it was, but says that the homages throughout it felt like a reward for people who had read JOJO up to that point. They go on to discuss how they got into the characters and their favorite lines from themselves and the other cast members. Then we have an interview with Kenta Miyake, the voice actor of Steven Steele and Avdol, and his meeting with the anime's director Toshiyuki Kato. When discussing the biggest challenges of the new anime, Kato says that the animation of the horses was a big concern. Immediately after the end of the Stone Ocean adaptation, they started to experiment with some rough cuts of how to handle the horses' movement. They had planned from the beginning to use CG, but this trial run helped them iron out the kinks and improve the presentation. He discusses meeting with some people from Shueisha, and with some comments from Araki and Part 7's editor, they said to try and capture the dry atmosphere of the Wild West setting. When speaking about Johnny, Kato says that Araki's instructions were to bring out a boyish feel to Johnny with his character design. Finally, there's an interview with the series composer Yugo Kanno. They discuss the evolution of JOJO's music over time, as well as when last year the baseball player Shohei Ohtani used the Part 5 main theme as his entrance music, which was selected by his wife. Then we have an advertisement for a vinyl soundtrack including songs from multiple parts of the anime, and a record player featuring the new magazine cover art. Next is the 3rd installment of La Squadra's Last Supper, this time giving a recipe for an oxtail stew inspired by the Italian region of Lazio, and panata sarda, a kind of savory meat pie inspired by Sardinia. Then there's a section going over the various businesses found in Morioh, giving a floor plan of each based on the manga and anime, and estimating their property value. Now we have the manga chapter of the issue, a gag manga titled Enya the Hag's Fangirl Diary by Mitsutoshi Shimabukuro. This story is set in some kind of alternate setting with Enya in the modern world, bemoaning how she used to be feared as a villain. She starts arguing with her stand and wishes she still had a villain to support as her Oshi, or favorite idol. Justice points out a guy littering, but Enya thinks he's too weak and chases after him, so he picks it up. She sees a girl lose her balloon and be strong enough not to cry, so she grabs it for her. Later, when crossing the street, she sees a truck run a red light, which she thinks is evil, so she goes after him, causing a crash. The driver is arrested by 2 cops that look like Abakio and his partner. Enya finds an injured black cat with a kitten that was run over and helps it up with her stand so it can become a symbol of bad luck. Afterwards, Enya thinks it's too hot, so she has Justice cool her down with fog when she thinks she sees Dio and later her son Jay Guile, but they just turn out to be cosplayers going to a convention. She meets a boy in a wheelchair who wants to cosplay Bao when his legs get better. Justice tells her that the boy won't be able to walk again, but Enya says that she'll support him. Enya cools down the crowd outside with mist, and the boy feels his legs start to move as she leaves. Overall, this chapter is alright. As far as the actual story, it was kind of nice, although I feel like compared to the previous issue's gag manga, the jokes weren't as funny, and it felt more like the same joke over and over again. I can't say I'm much of a fan of the art either, although I did enjoy the sort of bizarre setting that mixed fiction and reality. The author here is the artist behind multiple Shonen Jump manga, including Toriko, but like anybody that knows anything about this guy, I really don't think he should be getting any work at all, so it's disappointing to see him get a spot here. Next we have the first chapter of a new JoJo light novel titled Lonesome Tim, Lasso Bullets and Hexed Maiden. As the title suggests, this is a story focused on Mountain Tim, making this the first ever JoJo spin-off solely set in the new JoJo universe. It's written by Kira Tsukinami, who previously wrote a chapter focused on sorbet and gelato for the Passione-themed short story collection. The chapter begins shortly after the second stage of the race, where Mountain Tim was forced to drop out after the fight with Oya Komova. He's riding on the train when he begins telling another passenger the story of when he was 16 and encountered the Devil's Palm. We get a more detailed look at Tim's army service and some of the members of his unit that died, including a scene where native people try to warn them to avoid the Devil's Palm. A girl with a red scarf that Tim saves earlier reappears to rescue him after he wakes up with his stand. He goes on to tell another story about when he was hired to escort the girl across the country to be adopted after her tribe was killed, and on the way they are attacked by outlaw stand users. This chapter also gives us 3 new stand abilities. First is the stand of the native girl whose name is Standing Little Bear. Little Bear's stand allows her to manipulate sand, which we see her use to summon a sandstorm and use a landslide to escape. The main villain of the story is the outlaw Reed Whitman. His stand is Sea of Heartbreak, a sentient stand that is described as looking similar to a monkey. Its ability is to control the priority of actions. If an enemy tries to do the same physical action as Reed at the same time, the stand freezes them, allowing Reed to do it first. This essentially means that Reed will always be able to act first in a duel. The last stand is from one of Reed's minions, Branding I. Peterson. The stand is called Lazy Write Down P. It takes the appearance of a Grim Reaper-like figure with a branding iron. Whenever something is branded, it becomes the property of the user, and if anyone damages the property, the stand will then destroy something owned by them in return. From what I could follow along reading with Google Translate, I actually think this was pretty good, and I'm looking forward to the next chapter. For the other big feature of this issue, we have a section about JoJo and America. First, there's a quiz related to locations in the US that were featured in JoJo. So as always, let's go through them and see how you do. Question 1. When the Mafia member apologizes for how Smokey was treated, who does he say he works for? The answer is Robert E.O. Speedwagon. Question 2. From which airport did Joseph Joestar leave to visit his daughter Holly? The answer is the John F. Kennedy International Airport. Question 3. While under attack by the stand Bohemian Rhapsody, which character did Anasui and the others first encounter? The baby goat, Pinocchio, the dwarf, or Van Gogh's self-portrait? The answer is Pinocchio. Question 4. While on the way to the Kennedy Space Center, which animal did Jolene throw a ring at? The answer is an alligator. Question 5. What is the name of the strait between Lake Michigan and Lake Huron that Johnny and Gyro cross in the 6th stage of the race? The answer is the Straits of Mackinac. Question 6. Which of the Great Lakes is the Sugar Mountain Spring located near? The answer is Lake Michigan. Question 7. In the Steel Ball Run race, Monument Valley is located in which stage? The 1st stage, the 2nd stage, the 3rd stage, or the 4th stage? The answer is the 2nd stage. Question 8. What kind of work did Lisa Lisa's second husband do in Hollywood? The answer is that he was a screenwriter. Question 9. What did Rudolf von Stroheim name the Pillar Man after? The answer is that he named him Santana after the Santa Ana winds. Question 10. At Kona International Airport, what souvenirs from the island of Hawaii did Usagi recommend to Dragona Joestar? The answer is macadamia nuts and Kona coffee. Let me know in the comments how you did. Personally, I got all of these except for the 2 Michigan questions and the Hawaii one. It kind of tries to trip you up by mentioning Lake Michigan before it shows up as an answer, and I'm just not that familiar with rereading Part 9 yet to get something so specific. Then we have an interview with 2 of Araki's former editors and employees of Viz Media discussing the history of JoJo's localization in the United States. Then there's a segment covering the Race Across America, a bike race across the continental United States, and comparing it to the Steel Ball Run race. Then a section going over the history of the Joestar and Zeppeli families' relationships. This is followed by a strategy guide on how to do well in the Steel Ball Run race, comparing horse riding techniques and various breeds of racehorses. Then there's a Johnny Joestar focused section on the history of wheelchairs and their appearances throughout the JoJo series. After that is a series of quotes from Araki originating from various sources, all relating to American culture. As expected, they mostly cover his tastes in American music and movies. After that is a 2-page segment showing Araki's visit to the filming locations of the movie Dirty Harry. If you didn't know, Clint Eastwood's character in Dirty Harry is cited by Araki as one of the main inspirations for Jotaro Kujo. The movie was largely filmed in San Francisco, California, so these pictures were taken during Araki's recent visit there for the exhibition. He also recreates some scenes from the movie itself. I went to watch some clips from the movie to compare, which makes these pictures of Araki really funny with full context. Then there's a big section dedicated to one of Araki's non-JoJo manga, The Lives of Eccentrics. This was an anthology series created by Araki and his former assistant Hirohisa Onikubo, with each chapter focusing on an eccentric real-world figure. Araki wrote every chapter, but only illustrated 2 of the 6, Winchester Mystery House and Typhoid Mary, with Onikubo drawing the rest. The section includes an interview between Araki's former editors Ryosuke Kabashima and Ryo Ito, where they discuss the origins of the idea and the research into the true stories behind the manga. This segment coincides with Lives of Eccentrics receiving its first digital release. Finally, to finish the America-themed segment, we have a feature covering Kabashima's personal visit to the Winchester Mystery House. If you aren't familiar with it, this was the former house of Sarah Winchester, whose husband's family founded the Winchester Repeating Arms Company, which manufactured rifles. The Winchester Manor which she had constructed was notable for its large size and strange maze-like rooms, and after her death it became a tourist attraction, with urban legends claiming that she built the house to ward off evil spirits of people killed by her family's business. This idea was the main premise of Araki's chapter about her, which shows her fleeing from ghosts in the house. Next, we have an interview with the comedian Kendo Kobayashi and the announcer Atsuko Uchida, where they discuss the YouTube series Let's Answer JoJo's Bizarre Questions, a comedy quiz show on the Jump Comics YouTube channel. Now we come to the second light novel section in the issue, a continuation of Synchronicity and Morioh, a novel starring Rohan and Josuke. The first chapter was published in the last issue, and this issue includes the second and third. The story revolves around Josuke and Rohan watching Koichi's dog Police while he's away in Italy and encountering mysteries along the way. Most notably in these chapters we get introduced to 2 new stands. The first is a stand of a crow, which awoke after it ate a piece of the stand arrow left behind by Yoshihiro Kira's death. The crow's nameless stand inhabits Tonio's restaurant, and its ability is that whenever you enter the room the stand is activated in, you lose your memory of why you entered it. It also muffles the room from outside sound to prevent you from being reminded of your objective by other people. The other stand is called Sleep Trance, and is actually the stand of the dog Police. Like the crows, this stand also formed after Police ate a piece of the arrow. Its ability activates when Police falls asleep and allows him to leave his physical body and possess others. After this is a segment on Araki's second collaboration with the Yebisu Beer Company, where he created illustrations for their advertisements which were also printed onto the beer cans. The second collaboration included 2 new illustrations titled Moonlight Rocket and Birdwatching. It also included a unique brew, which Araki chose to name Golden Odyssey. Next, we see Araki on a visit to the JoJo World, a permanent store location which opened in July. This came as a follow-up to the numerous JoJo World events that have been running over the past few years, which feature JoJo-themed merchandise, food, and minigames. Here we get a glimpse of Araki playing the games. One of these is the Stand Abilities Lab, where the player plays a series of minigames to measure their stand stats and then is given one of about 120 stands to match. So from this we learn that Araki's stand is Gold Experience Requiem. We also see him receive a fortune from Iggy and play a game based on Zeppeli punching the frog. Finally, we have the traditional ending to each issue of the JoJo Magazine, a look at a meeting between Araki and his former editor, Ryosuke Kawashima. This time, they are also joined by another one of Araki's editors, Takashi Sasaki. Kawashima worked with Araki during his early work and throughout Part 3, where he had a major impact on the series. Sasaki was the next editor, working with him for about a year during the beginning of Part 4's run. Their meeting took place in San Francisco during Araki's recent visit there. They discussed the growing popularity of manga in the United States and how in early translations the artwork would often be flipped to read left to right, which had been done with the English release of Araki's manga Bao the Visitor. On their visit to San Francisco, Araki mentions riding inside of a driverless taxi and was impressed with how well it was able to function. He goes on to discuss the danger of technological advancements such as AI entering the realm of art and copyright. He then mentions his planned visit to the filming locations of Dirty Harry that I went over before, which happened the next day after this interview. He discusses some of the influences behind his work, such as the manga Babel II, which he read when he was younger. He says that the image of the main character in the desert wearing a school uniform influenced Jotaro in Part 3. He also goes over how he planned to include a girl with the Stardust Crusaders, and how the runaway girl Anne was sort of a failed idea of that. They go over Araki's early history as an artist and how he met Kawashima while submitting his first manuscripts. They also mention Sandstorm, one of Araki's earliest unpublished one-shots, the manuscript of which is now lost. Eventually, after JoJo ran for long enough, Araki says that he felt like he was safe from worrying about popularity. He says that 40 years ago, he couldn't have imagined that he would still be working on JoJo. And that's everything in the new JoJo Magazine. Like always, I enjoy just having a lot of JoJo in one place, and seeing features dedicated to weird little obscure subjects is always interesting to me. I particularly appreciated the light novel stories this time, and I think they both are shaping up to be really good full books. We're just over a month out from the Steel Ball Run anime's release, and can expect to see it enter its second weekly stage sometime this fall. But recently, the waits for JoJo haven't really felt so bad when we have stuff like the magazine and new stories releasing to supplement the monthly manga. In the meantime, I'm also planning to get back into releasing videos more frequently, including my recent return to shorts, which I feel like are a pretty good way of covering smaller topics that may not be able to make it into a full video. If you want to stay updated on my next videos, make sure to subscribe and click the notification bell. You can also join the Hum and Beat Discord to be notified on any new uploads and JoJo news. Finally, I'd appreciate if you help support the channel on Patreon or by becoming a YouTube member. All supporters get their names featured in the credits and can submit viewer questions. This video's question comes from Yusuf. They ask, what do I think of the Yakuza series? Back in my 300,000 subscriber video, I went over some of the things I like other than JoJo and talked for a bit about Yakuza there. To sum it up, I really like the series, although I do have some problems with the modern entries, particularly the remakes. And I hate practically everything they're doing now when it comes to Kiwami 3. For the moment, while I'll always like the older games, I'm sort of tapped out until something changes, and if Stranger Than Heaven ends up being really good. If you want to leave a question, you can become a patron or member at any tier. On Patreon, you can leave it in the community chat located on the left side of the screen, or through a direct message. And on YouTube, you can reply to the members-only community post. I try to answer one question in each of my main videos, so feel free to leave as many as you want. Thank you for watching. This is the part of the video where I thank my $5 and up patrons and members. Thank you to Doorbell, Crayon, Rigovids, Pumpkin Doge, Sponge Cake, Cakext, Feliciano Rabaja, Christian McDonough, Pulse Dog, Rob Goliath, Big T, Gold, Red Hot Mayonnaise, Baxtonius, Zenkai, Keenan, Saint Bobo, John Garcia, Crank and Plank, Fran Studios, Shin Megami Tensei Film Reviews, Griffiono, Fiddlehead, Justice, Joel Marchins, Danilo K, Star the Gunslinger, Kali, Javier's Milk, Billy the Corgi, Joe Jogan, Time Lord, Moist Daddy Tom, Ivy D. Frost, and Daisuke Z.